What I keep being too caught up by all my demons, lost without that love.
So, author, businessman, you are very versatile with your skills, and you've gone on to be successful on a lot of pathways. But I want to take you back to the start and the start of your life journey. So, we talked about the fact that you've been battling a brain disease for the majority of your life. So, when did that start, and when did that become apparent?
A lot of it's hindsight. Throughout my childhood, it was there, but you didn't have MRI scans and things back then. It sounds like I'm ancient, doesn't it? But it's true. But I used to fall over a lot, and I'd walk into things, and people would just think, "Oh, that's Jonathan being clumsy," and I'd drop things, and I'd get told off by the teachers. And my attention span, even now, is absolutely. And if I just get up and walk off, it's because I'll have forgotten I'm talking to you. I've been in business meetings with Skype on with the headphones, and I've literally just got up. The headphones go flying off, and so I mean, looking back, it was it was always there. But I was about 20, 21. I was just finishing my degree. I remember doing my finals, and I was like writing away the exams, and then I kept having to put my hand down because my arm was going completely dead. And I don't know why, because it's an unusual thing to happen. But I was just looking, thinking, well, no one else is doing that. But I used to play a lot of badminton, a lot of tennis, and all of a sudden I was just dropping the racket. The racket would go flying off, and I started to get a pain at the back of the head. And I did a lot of weight training, so I thought, well, it's just I've pulled something, but unfortunately it was something called a hindbrain hernia, and it caused all manner of mischief. So there wasn't a dramatic eureka during childhood, but it was definitely all of the little niggles and symptoms that people couldn't explain. It was just all to do with this brain disease.
So you said that it affected you during the exam. So I imagine throughout the educational journey, it affected you massively. So, and you talk about the lack of concentration, because I've read your book, and you said at the start that you were labelled the naughty kid.
I mean, it was nice mischief, I always thought, but it is definitely, my attention span's just terrible. I have to be engaged in something. So when I'm talking football and things, it's great. I'm engaged and all that sort of thing. But at school, if they didn't get my attention, I was just off with the, in my own little head. And I did used to get quite angry quite quickly, I guess. And I think some of that is to do with the frustration of not really realising there was something wrong, but there was something wrong. You can't overanalyze it. I was just a little git at times, really. And actually, the teachers that engaged me, they, my reports are so. You've read in the book some of the comments, some of the teachers, like the chemistry teacher. I'd appreciate if he just brought his book every now and then and things like that. But then the lessons like economics and that, I liked it, so I'd sort of behave in those. I mean, when I used to go into chemistry, the other students used to say, pupils, whatever they call them at school, used to say fear out, because they knew full well if they didn't say it, the chemistry teacher would at some point during the lessons. So.
And when did your passion for Aston Villa come in your life journey? Was it that during your younger stages, or was it something like you grew older and then your love for Villa really blossomed?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, Dad was, Dad. It's the usual father-son thing. But I can remember my brother went to a match, so I must have been 6 or 7, and he brought me back a badge. And the badge was just glorious. It was the old round badge. And I remember wearing it at school. And then at school, the actual enamel bit fell off. And I said to the teacher, I've lost my badge. I need to go out to the playground. She said, you can't. I said, well, I am. And I did. And I got in a lot of trouble, but I found the badge. So and then Mom and Dad bought me a towel. When I opened it up, it said Ali Notza. And I was like, what's that? I don't and we'll turn it round. Then it was obviously Aston Villa. So it was the little bits and bobs that sort of build, and the Subbuteo team was claret and blue. Dad would always talk about it. And then Dad took us down to a game, my brother and me. The first one, bearing in mind there was no radio in the car, there was no internet, there was no mobile phones. So we get closer, and Dad says, "Oh, this is strange. There's not much traffic." And we get down there, and there's big signs, match off. The pitch was frozen. Oh. So that was my first trip to Villa Park. But the second one, we went upstairs in the upper Trinity. It's the old. You guys obviously wouldn't know it, but it's the old wooden stand. And when people banged their feet on it, what was I, 8? It was 1977. Once you heard that sound, it was just unbelievable. And Daddy, when are they going to do that again? He was trying to watch the match, the poor side. Then the guy next to me, little old man, was shouting so loud his false teeth fell out, and that was it. I was just, and it's funny enough, like the players that I know now were on the pitch that day, and it was a couple of years ago. I went to corporate, and I thought, right, just stand out the way and wait for my friends. I don't want to be sort of circulating and that lot. I get like that at times. But then Ken McNaught walked in, and I know Ken, so Ken came and started talking to me, bearing in mind I'm trying to be out of the way of everyone and just unassuming. And so I'm talking to Ken, then Brian Little walks in, then Peter McParland walks in, and of course they all know each other, so they're all, you know, Sid Cowens walks in. I ended up, and John Deehan and all these greats. So I end up in the middle of all the legends and things, and me being me, I didn't really think about it, but I just laughed and said, well, a lot of you were playing in the first match they had ever saw. And they were like, oh, really? Right? Did we win? I said, no, we lost and you broke my heart. And that, you know, that was sort of unsuitable, really. But what can you do?
So regarding trying to keep you contained and focused, did you find that writing and supporting Aston Villa was a way to really focus your attention span on those certain things to potentially then continue with life and function to the best possible version of yourself?
Yeah, probably. I mean, it's having interest in life. I mean, at times when I'm at my earliest, I can't do very much at all. And because my mind is so active, it's very difficult. So I then try and focus in on the little moments in life. Or it's like, I mean, after my brain up, I'm massively passionate about music. You probably move that. You can see there's over 1,000 odd CDs. And for a couple of years, I couldn't play them because the noise would be there and it would sound up in my head in a different place. The first concert I went to after was a couple of years after, and it was Ocean Colour Scene before they became big. And the bass was echoing at the back of where they'd made a cavity in my head. The point is, so I couldn't play the music. So I used to get the music books out and read them. And it's the same with the football. I couldn't go for a couple of years, having been a season ticket holder for years and years. So I think then it was like read more, focus more, and like weight training and things, I couldn't do it. So I was reading all the books, like preparing for when I could next do it. So yeah, I think with me, it's my attention span when other people are trying to teach me things isn't great, but I've got a good attention when it's something that I want to be studying. And then I'm absolutely meticulous with it. Everything I do has to be written out and planned and sort of, you know, it's very, very laser focused then.
Now, I know you've gone through a lot of operations in your life, and probably now the thought of operation doesn't seem as worrying as it probably did when you were younger. But when you first had an operation due to your brain disease, what were the predominant emotions in your head at that time? Were you worried about the future?
I don't, and the reason is I'm a firm believer that even if you stress about it, it's like I drop a lot of things and I break a lot of things. Well, not a lot of things, but you know. So if the other week I'd got an energy drink, and of all the ones, it was a bright blue thing. Dropped it, smashed it. Now you can get angry at that, but it's still broken. So you just have to deal with it, and that's the way I did. I mean, I was quite lucky by the time I was told I needed. Quite lucky by the time I was told I needed a brain op. I'd been so ill it didn't really matter. I knew I was ill, and the doctors and all that had sort of all treated me quite badly and not believed there was anything wrong. So it was kind of a relief of So I'm Not Mad Then, which was going to be the title of the book at one stage. But I'd also had quite a few other operations. But I seem to be very good at putting one foot in front of the other and just getting on with life, which is why I think some of the people with the lockdown and COVID, and I don't mean the people that have suffered or families that are bereaved, I'm not that hard-arsed, but the people that are moaning might not be after a holiday and things, well, you know, suck it up, buttercup. It just is life. And life isn't always easy, and we don't always get everything that we want. And I think at the moment, we're so cushy in our lives, which is a good thing. You know, 200 years ago, it wasn't easy, and 100 years ago, it was sort of long factory hours and things. And we've made life very comfortable, but it's too comfortable now, and everyone expects everything. Well, you don't always get everything you want.
The importance of a work ethic sometimes goes unnoticed, but I think nowadays people are starting to realise that if you don't work hard, then you won't get anywhere in life. And you are such a prime example of having such a hard work ethic, and that's how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is, and I've always wanted to make money. You know, even as a kid, I was always. I mean, they used to call me Arthur Daly. It's not all of them, but Arthur Daly at school. I remember one music shop went bust, and they were selling the old cassette tapes that you youngsters wouldn't know about. They flogged them off really cheap, so I bought loads of them. And then I was going around Sutton Coldfield shopping centre, seeing people I knew, and said, right, they're 25p each or 4 for £1. And everyone would say, yeah, I'll have 4 for £1 then, please. And it was only as you walked off, they would think, hang on a minute, you haven't given me a discount, have you? You know. So I was always up to something, and I think it's important. I mean, quite often I've had to go to meetings where my brain's at the worst, and I'm literally having to hold my head. Sometimes it's like as you know, I put off the interview with you because I wanted to do this right, and I had an operation last November, and it did affect my speech. And it's not the fact that I'd be embarrassed by it or anything. What's the name of the guy on Twitter that's fantastic with getting awareness for stammers? Adam Wright, great guy, great example of you get on with what you dealt with. But I did with this interview, I wanted to sort of at least be able to remember half of what I'm saying, because I've had big sort of gaps in memory and all that sort of thing. But I think if you want to achieve something, you're not going to just get it like that. I mean, what you're doing now with this channel, that's slowly building for your career, and it's great. And it would be a lot easier not to bother. You could just sit playing your Xbox and this, that, and the other, or you get well, my whole thing, get out and live. And for me, I was registered disabled, didn't really have to do anything, and it didn't sit right with me. I wanted to do something, and I mean, Vital became just absolutely massive.
And talking about your passion for wanting to do something, when you were younger, in terms of having a job when you were older, was it something specific, or did you just want to go, I want to do this and that, and then whatever I'm best at, that's what I'll go forth and do when I'm older?
Yeah, I mean, one of the initial plans was to do my degree in the Marines, because my dad had been a Marine in conscription. Then my granddad, who I never met, was a Marine during the Second World War, great granddad, First World War. I'd like to have done officer training, done the Marines, got my degree, and then come out and done something. But I think it always would have been entrepreneurial, because I'm not good at being told what to do, really. Unless there is a real logic to it, I'd rather be telling others. It's like when we did, all the protests over Doug and things, I kind of leapt forward to the front of it to do it. And it's not in a bossy way. Even at uni, when we used to have to do group stuff, sometimes they used to pay me and I'd do it, because I don't know, I just don't like deferring things. I like to get on with it and lead.
The importance of a work ethic, was that inherited from your dad? Bear in mind that being in the Marines, the value of being resilient is so highly rewarded, or was that just on your own accord, you going forth and having a really hard work ethic?
Yeah, no, I think I'm a little bit different to everybody else in the way my outlook of life, but definitely work ethic is my parents. My dad worked in the wholesale market 6 days a week. They used to get there at about 3 a.m. And it was when, I mean, again, this sounds old fashioned, but the weather's definitely changed. They used to they'd sell flowers, and he worked on the salad as well at times. Bearing in mind, this is a wholesale selling to the shops. But sometimes they used to put the flowers in the banana chiller because it was warmer in there than it was like outside. You used to get the mugs of tea and they used to freeze and all that. And he never once complained. He just went, did it, worked for his family and all that. So I suppose some people look for gurus, whereas just look for people that are, doing things in life. And Dad set the example without ever sort of telling us. It was just whether he was ill, whether he was well, he was up, out, worked, came back, great for the family and all that sort of thing. Took us down the football, which after being in the freezing cold, then to take us down to the football must have been, I don't like the cold too much.
And we talked about the origins of how you came to be as an individual, but if you could have chosen a life without the brain disease complications, would you have done so? Or has this brain disease has really helped mold you into a really hardworking, resilient individual, and therefore you wouldn't wish for a life without it?
Well, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, at times it is a torture. I mean, I'm very good at dealing with it, I think, and I'm told, and others sort of all say it, and I seem to have a cheerful disposition. I'd rather not have had it, but what would have happened if I hadn't had it? I mean, I've had a lot of operations before. I've had 14 operations now, which is a bit of a problem because I've got 13 tattoos, so I've got to even that up at some at some stage. But what would have happened if I hadn't had it? You know, it's a bit like sliding doors, isn't it? You turn another corner. So, you know, I might have been a roaring success, or who knows what would have happened. I might have got knocked down going to the gym, or, you know, I don't think you can really look at what would have been. You've just got to deal with what is. And sometimes it's not very pleasant, you know, when I can't talk properly or stand up properly, or, you know, some of my mates at times, you know, you'd never tell them bad. Sometimes I'm literally falling over. When you're in a pub and you're falling over, of course, and you've got a skinhead and tattoos, people think you're a yob, and you can't go around everyone saying, I'm sober, I'm all right. It's, you know, it was a couple of years ago now, but walking into a pub, everyone went up the stairs. I couldn't get up the stairs. The bouncers came down to me. And it was only when I started talking to them, they could tell actually he's all right, and I speak quite nicely. And I'm always told, you don't sound like you look, so make of that what you will. I think sometimes I look angry. It's just a bit of pain, and I don't walk around with a smile on my face. But the bouncers were coming down, sorry, you're too drunk to come in. And I haven't touched a drop yet. You know?
And during lockdown as well, the importance of exercise I've really valued more, and I've gone out and I've done more runs, and I've worked in my gym just up there. And the value of exercise is I've really chosen this time specifically when, like you said, I could be playing on my Xbox or PlayStation to really hone that skill and become physically fit and consequently have a better mentality. And I know that you value the importance of exercise so much as well. So at what age, because you said that as a youngster, you did weight training, has exercise been apparent in your life throughout?
Always, even at my earliest when I couldn't do anything, and I literally couldn't. Because it started off doing all sorts of sports. I was never any good at school, because I always think they just make it a torture at school. And I can remember once I was playing tennis on the school property, and the sports teacher came, and he came up and said, hang on a minute, you don't play any of the sports because you've got bad knees and you're here playing sport. He said, I tell you what, I won't tell on you if you don't tell on me, because he'd come to get one of the big rollers from the school to borrow. But it had to be the sport that I wanted to. So it was tennis, badminton. Then I started mountain biking long distances. Then I started on the weights at about 17, 18, something like that. And it was right by Sutton Park. So then I'd go walking for ages. And the mental clarity you get, I think, I mean, well done for what you're doing, because it's so many people now are putting up excuses. Oh, I'll do something after lockdown. Well, now's the time. Don't wait for tomorrow. And I know it all sounds cliched, but it's true. I was fit as a fiddle. I was big. I was, you know, loving life, loving uni. Bang, all of a sudden that started hurting, and my life changed. And there was a 10 or 15 year, let me picture it, 10 or 15 years where there was just a black hole, you know, and I don't look back on it and stress about it like a lot of people would let that ruin their lives. But it's a hell of a long time. So when people now are talking about lockdown at just a year, my experience is so extreme, and I'm used to, it's like, I had a flare up. It started last May. It's only just clearing. So I'm talking to you, as you know, I put this off. You just have to deal with it. But I do think that sport is just, even when you don't feel like doing it, if you feel, especially like depression, you can Google the information, but it helps all the chemicals in the mind, and it might be the last thing that you feel like doing, but you should do it anyway. Sometimes just challenge yourself, get out and do something. With my weight training, even like a couple of months ago, you never know whether I'm going to get back to it. I've got my own gym. It's a professional gym, so I'm lucky, and I've got my 4 punch bags and cable machine and all the workings. I didn't know whether I'd be able to get back, but as soon as I get that little ping and sort of, well, let's go and try. And sometimes my body will tell me very quickly, no, don't be stupid. And you don't argue with a brain disease. You just don't. You know, there are certain things where you can get round, and there are other times where it's just like, let's be safe. But I'm back in there now and building back up. I get a little bit bored of all the fight backs, because you just get to the stage where you think, oh, this is the best shape of my life, and then 8, 9, 10 months not doing anything again. But this time I shall get to the best shape of my life.
But when this brain disease did take hold of you, what were some of the worst days? How did what did it feel like for you to try and function normally? Could you not? What were the implications surrounding that?
It's horrible. My achievement in a day was getting up. I'd get up. I'd have recorded in the old cassette things, videos. I'd record Zig and Zag from what was it? The Big Breakfast, because I wanted to have something to laugh at.
Yeah.
I'd watch This Morning every morning, and I hate daytime TV, not from a snobby point of view, but that's not what I want to do in my life. It was Richard and Judy in those days, and they were like my best friends. It was ridiculous because that's all I could do. Get up, lie on the floor, and if I tried to do anything else, I'd be falling over. And there's nothing good and there's nothing positive to say about those times at all, apart from I got through them and I did it with as much as I could, smile on my face. I wore out my parents' armchair. There was a patch on the carpet where you could see that I sort of lay down for hour after hour. And back then, I mean, I hadn't got a computer. I couldn't read because the confusion and all that. So, you know, it was a black hole. I mean, I couldn't drive for a few years, all that sort of thing. So I remember standing on my doorstep once, looking out into the street and the world, and it was like that was a completely separate. Mind you, the one day someone rung the bell and I went, and it was the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they started telling me about Armageddon, and I turned around and I got staples at the back of my head where the scar was, and just told them Armageddon's already come, and that I've never seen people move away so quickly in all my life. So I don't think they expected that reaction, to be honest.
And you talk about your connection with your mom, your dad, and I imagine that throughout this time, your family has been present during your complications with the brain disease. But has that relationship with your family been strained, or have they been really supportive?
No, they're supportive, but also, you see, I don't really ask for much. I mean, in fact, Mom choked me up once because she said, "You don't let us do anything for you, but you don't even let me give you a hug." And at that stage, I realised I was trying to be too stoic and I'm all right. But I don't really ask for much. It does upset me to think that they had to see me going in for the operations, and must be agony in the waiting room. And I mean, with obviously of all of, I mean, I hemorrhaged with a chest operation, that was touch and go. But with a brain operation, you don't know whether you're going to wake up or how you're going to wake up and all that sort of thing. So I did have to have the conversation with them back then of, right, well, if I wake up in such and such a state, you know, I don't want the machines kept on and all that. So it's not nice for them. But then they get the other side of me. I'm hilariously funny, witty, charming. I do their shopping for them now, and I think they use lockdown as an excuse. They just don't like shopping, to be honest. But no, we're close, and I mean, I have a way of laughing at the absurd, and brain disease is absurd.
And laughter is the best medicine, because I've watched lots of Ricky Gervais's work and loads of comedians during this period, and they all come across the same ideology in the fact that if you approach an obstacle in your life, of course you have to address it, but in order to take away, I don't know, some form of pain, then laughter is the best medicine. And that's why I'm a big fan of comedy.
Yeah, mind you, you follow my Facebook. I mean, my jokes are absolutely abysmal, and I think as the worst jokes you can do when everybody groans, it seems to be my superpower. Makes me stronger. But I just think you've got to laugh in life, and people take it too seriously. And some of the forums, you read the threads, and people are. I mean, Twitter is a prime example. You can't go on and have a bit of banter. It's just anger. And actually, if you just took a step back and thought, does it really matter? But laughter's the best medicine, apart from when I had all my ribs broken, and then you try and laugh then. So I was watching Ronnie Barker once being interviewed by Terry Wogan, and it was just so hilarious. And I've never been in so much pain.
So you've done marathons, you've done other exercises in terms of really extreme lengths. So when lockdown does finish, what are you targeting to do more of in terms of these exercise challenges?
Yeah, I'm not sure yet. I'm having to take things steady because I've got to see how this operation settles, and I can't take it for granted. And like age catches up with these things as well. And when I had to go to Barcelona for this operation,
wow.
And they walked me through all the scans. I sort of tailbone all the way up to the top of the head scanned, and I walked out quite proud because it's just an absolute mess. It really is, the amount of damage. I've got one more peak to do. I did Ben Nevis, the one in Wales. What was it called? Can't remember. It doesn't matter. Apologies to the Welsh if I'm saying it doesn't matter. So I've got Scafell Pike to do in England. So that will be probably the next challenge if I can. The marathon was interesting. I couldn't run it. And this is like another big point of mine. If you can't do something one way, do it another way. You can't always run through a wall, or get over a wall. You go around it, try, So I marched it. It took over 7 hours, and it literally was one foot in front of the other, which I know sounds obvious because you couldn't do it any other way. It was agony, and I nearly passed out at one stage. I didn't tell my friend because he'd have called it off. And it's a bit silly with legs as bad as mine to do that. But then when I'm falling over or having an operation or something, and I look at that medal, you can't take that off me because it's such an achievement to have done it. And I kept thinking, well, this doesn't hurt as much as the brain operation. So I've got quite a high bar, really. But when I did feel sorry because there was a guy running and we walked past him, and he turned to his wife and said, bloody hell, they're walking quicker than I can run. I can't imagine how gutted he must have felt.
And you've done lots of work for Aston Villa in terms of advertisements. You sent me an article via Messenger for the Birmingham Mail, something regarding half naked. What was that about?
The story of the half-naked man. I've never seen such a abstract headline before. But yeah, Under Armour were our kit manufacturer. And it was at the time, I can't remember which year it was. It wasn't many years back. I can't remember a damn thing, so I've given up trying to remember.
That's fine.
I'd have had to have had a whole script here of dates and things. And
sorry.
But Under Armour were being announced, and the players were so unpopular, the club decided to do something different. I mean, it's bizarre, isn't it? And now look at who we've got as choices and all the great players we've had like before. But at this particular point, I don't think they could have imagined having any player doing the kit launch. So for some bizarre reason, I'd been in Men's Health as like disabled, different heroes type of edition. And I happened to have Under Armour shorts on. So someone at the club, Adam, that does marketing, put two and two together, and it snowballed into me. And there was a lady football player, Villa player, Beth. She featured in it. Then they had a couple of models. A bit insulted I wasn't counted as one of the models. but yeah, I mean, I sort of helped head up the launch video. Was great. I mean, to be sitting in the Holt End, being the first person ever to have worn the Villa top that year, to take the Under Armour training kit off and reveal the Villa's kit, and then you've got to like look like that, and then look, these things, they're not to be sniffed at, for the amount of lows I've had some pretty fantastic sort of surreal highs. But so the video is about people training. So I was at Bodymore Heath. There's me standing in my trunks. I'd got to do a few lengths and dive in and this, that, and the other. And I kind of looked and I thought, I'm surrounded by blokes now. There's me in just a pair of trunks, and I don't mind so much now, but all my ribs smashed up. And the whole idea of what I've done is kind of showing people, well, you don't have to be perfect. You just become the best version of yourself. So yeah, the enticing thing for the launch was like showing a clip of me getting into Bodymore swimming pool. And of all the clips I used, it was the very worst, in my opinion. It was the worst picture you could possibly, because I'm just like semi-bending over, bending down. My ribs are sunk anyway. So it looks like my stomach's out there. And it wasn't, I was about 9-10% body fat, but I looked bloated and, so that was it. Swimming at Bodymore. Then I had to go in the gym there, and that was more my natural sort of home. They're redoing the gym now, because I must admit, I was shocked how bad it was. Oh, it really was bad. But the fact that it had all been redone and so much of it is good at Bodymore, the gym was really crummy.
And you said in your piece with Claret and Blue, of course, linked and affiliated with Birmingham Mail, that you have a fear of being average. So regarding all these activities that you do you have an addictive personality in terms of the fact that you want to continue to strive to do these activities to keep raising that bar to surpass anyone's expectations?
I think if I didn't get the highs in life and do things like that, which are just bizarre, and sometimes you have to listen out for the compliments, because as you know, online, there's an awful lot of negativity. And I think you can have 100 people, 99 people tell you you're good. One person calls you this, that, and the other. And if you focus on that one person, you're really lost. But I think my lows are so low. If I didn't have the highs to look at and prove to myself that I can do things and that I'm still alive, because I could have just sat on the sofa and nobody would have batted an eyelid, because, you know, I don't like whinging and whining, and it's all usually at an arm's length. Even my doctor has said to me, you don't own it. It's just like, it's something you've got, and it's kind of there. But I think if I didn't have the highs, if I hadn't got Ben Nevis and things like that, when I'm just lying on the floor watching TV, which I don't want to be doing, life would just be so dull, I think. And I mean, everyone can do this. Just do something that you're frightened of. The very first thing I did was an interview for the Villa, which was the old Villa radio before all these podcasts and things. And Dave James, who now does some of the presenting in corporate at Villa, hosted it. So he got to know me. I was quite vocal back then and on form with protests and this, that, and the other. But this was really early days of all of that, actually. I don't think I'd fully started it. But he rang me up and said, you've always got a bright opinion and this, that, and the other. Will you do the radio? And straight away I said, no, I can't do the radio. And I had a little chat with him, put the phone down. And the reason was, I used to blank out. Sometimes I'd be halfway, literally that. So I thought, well, the last thing I can do is go on a radio. And then I thought, well, hang on a minute. You literally can't do a parachute jump, because that, with the pressure and things, make this your parachute jump. So even though at the time I couldn't do any sport or anything, I did something that frightened me. And all I said to Dave James, and Tony Morley was the other one in like they did a double act, and then they got a guest in. But if I go like that, and obviously on radio, it doesn't matter. You just put my hand up, help me out if I've forgotten something. And the challenge of doing that made me realise, right, that didn't kill me. What can I do next? And it just snowballed.
During lockdown as well, when civilization isn't at its peak and no one can really socialise, have you took this time now, like you said, to become more fitter and more mentally stronger? How have you chosen this time to really improve yourself as a person?
Yeah, I'd started to do a little bit of work on myself before lockdown. In fact, I got COVID last March, and just as I came out of the isolation period, it was announced that it was lockdown. So my timing I just thought it was hilarious. The day I was like, I'm free. No, I'm not, but I'd started to evaluate, do I still want to be running a football network? Do I want to do other things? Do I want to spend a little bit more time getting outside? I've got a big thing about trees and forests and getting out in nature and walking around and soaking it up and all that sort of thing. So I decided to refocus efforts on selling the business and just running Vital Villa, which is always going to be my community. So I think the whole process had started before then. Then unfortunately, the operation came along. But I say unfortunately, because this might be the key to stop this being a degenerative illness. So it's not something that's done very often in Britain. So as I say, I went to Barcelona to do it. So I suppose that is all part of working on myself. I'd got to the stage where it was getting a little bit dodgy the way I was, and it only has to tip over slightly more, and then it's a different proposition in life. I was having to close my eyes to speak, and as you can tell, I like talking and having a laugh and all that, but it literally was just head back, eyes closed, and then I couldn't always think what I was saying, and that's all returning sort of, back to how it should be. This actually has been a good test for me today, because I didn't know whether I'd have to say, can we cut it for a while? Can I, so it's nice to see that there's a coherence back. So yeah, I have reevaluated. I'm swapping down my car from a big car to a smaller car and all that sort of thing. Just thinking next stages of life, what's important. But I think I've always been focused on the fitness side. It hasn't escalated, and it got halted because of the operation. But definitely I'm back in the gym and writing it all down, and it's just an obsession with me. Everything has to be noted and programmed and ready. I know what I'm doing this afternoon. I got asked at the supermarket once, because I'm not a big fan of Christmas, what you're doing for Christmas Day, and I said, yeah, I think it's shoulders. And of course she hadn't got a clue what I was on about, but true to form, it was the shoulder session.
I want to finally just end this interview on the topic of goal setting, because I know the complications and what they have been for you during your life journey. What are the goals you set yourself normally every single period of that time?
Yeah, I don't think I think I'm going to try and take the pressure off myself. I don't think I've got anything left to prove apart from to myself. I want to spend as much time as I can with mates. It's my birthday next week. Can't meet up with them. So I've told them we're putting that one in the bank for another time. Yeah, I think I'm going to like de-stress. My business has been sold. I get the final payment end of March. It does mean I should be able to relax a little bit more. I'll carry on writing. I might do another book. The main book that you've read there's someone looking at making it into a screenplay, then tap me out for a film, which I can't picture because it's just me. But I don't know if you've read the Google, the Amazon reviews and things. It seems to have inspired people and all that. So I suppose if they could angle a film or a documentary in that respect. But yeah, I think it's time for me to stop being quite so hard on myself, target-wise. But I know that'll last about 5 minutes, and I'll have another crazy plan anytime soon.
Jonathan, it's been a pleasure to speak to you today, mate. Your stories are absolutely fantastic, and I appreciate you taking the time today to speak to me.